Today we'll be looking at Google Apps for Education. I've started using Google Apps last year, almost a year ago, after I went to CapCUE and saw a presentation on it. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. And Google Apps made one significant change that really helped me out and will help you out too. It used to be that your district needed to adopt Google Apps for Education, and my district doesn't want to. And so now Google Apps for Education can be adopted by an individual teacher for one class. You can do it for all of your classes in the middle school setting. I teach math and an engineering elective class, and so I use it for my engineering. This year I started student council, and some of my students didn't have their own personal email addresses, so I can create personal email addresses for them. And it kind of summarize here what it needs for them. I mean, there's so much you can do with Google Apps. There's quite a few presentations on it today. I'm going to breeze through mine because there's definitely some presentations this afternoon that will focus on it. I gave a presentation this summer that went on for 2.5 hours on this, and so I am going to be moving kind of quickly today, but the resources are all available on this website. So there's handouts on there. There's a video that we're just going to watch a minute so you can see what it is, but it will take you step by step through the sign-up process if you are interested. So you can have web pages for your students. You can have safe and managed email addresses. That was one of the concerns, certainly with middle school students, is, well, who are they going to be emailing? And parents worried about them signing up for Facebook or anything else. So I can manage it. It's a little bubble, I call it, for my students. The kids in second period can email the other kids in second period and me. And that's all they need to email. It makes the parents happy. It takes care of all of our privacy concerns and things like that. So students are just working within that. There are assignments that, oh, you want to be able to see some students from other classes. I can give them individual access. One student isn't working well on chat. Their chat goes away. You can really micromanage everything about the students. The voice recording, I make a lot of videos in my class using Windows Movie Maker, and you can never have enough microphones. I don't have laptops or iMacs, and so there's regular PCs, and there's never enough microphones. And so students can use their cell phones and call a free number that you can set up through Google Voice, and it's just a free, not even an 800 number, it's a local number that they can call. And rather than leaving a voicemail, it comes up as an MP3 file. And so they can be clicking through their PowerPoint and narrating on their cell phone and then leave a voicemail, and then I can give them that file and they can put it into Windows Movie Maker. There's historical and interactive maps, cloud storage space. The storage space for our students is ridiculously small, 0.5 gigabyte. And so when students are making movie projects, one video won't even fit on there. So every day it's a little bit of an extra step for them, but they'll learn that that's what it's like in the real world. Is there's going to be IT hurdles in whatever employment you ever pursue. And so you got to kind of work around the system sometimes. They'll upload a video to Google Drive where they have, it's an ever-growing amount, I think it's over 30 gigs now, for free for the students. And the next day they download it back to their desktop, they work on it all period, and then they upload whatever they've saved at the end of class. Collaborative documents and peer editing, that's certainly it. So like I said, we're going to watch just a short video of this, but you'll get the idea of what's possible.
We're going to walk through signing up for Google Apps for Education. To begin, let's click Get Apps Today. It's going to be an application form here.
And so you'll fill in your information.
You'll want to work this out with your district.
Or you don't have to anymore.
It works for...
the one thing about Google Apps for Education is there is an annual, extremely small cost of $12, and that's for the domain name.
I recommend buying a domain from them. If you already own one, that works. But I found that buying one from GoDaddy.
Buying one, like I was going to say, buying one from GoDaddy, it's like $1 or $2 cheaper to own the MrJohnstone.com. That's what you're buying. Or I bought FolsomMiddleJaguars.com. And so all the email addresses are SusieQ@FolsomMiddleJaguars.com. So in order to own that, you have to buy it anywhere on the internet. There's no way around it. If your district IT person wanted to get into it, they could use their district one, and the district probably already owns the fcusd.org. I bought it. The school's like, we're not supporting that, so we're not reimbursing you the whole $12. So that's what it is. It's $12 to buy it one time. They say it starts at $8 a year, but that's for like the .us ones and the ones that no one can ever remember. So this video is up there for you to watch, and you can pause it step by step. I teach flip videos, and I'm just telling my students, like, when you don't understand, just pause it, do what you need to do, and then go back and rewind it, watch it again. So I think it took all of 6 minutes to get up and running. The Google Apps for Education, more and more districts are using it, so the turnaround time between you paying your $12 and you being up and running is not instantaneous. It took about 24 hours, and I've heard it takes as long as 48 hours now for them to set up everything on the back end and the infrastructure. So don't expect to be using it in the classroom tomorrow, but if you give yourself a week or so, there are some things you need to do, like upload all of your students' names. So if you have a CSV file with your students' names and ID numbers and all their passwords, you can create all that. You can make it so they can't change their password so that you can always get into their accounts. For me, I just use their ID number, and so it's easy for me to look up. It's easy for them to remember, but it works really well. So some uses of Google in the classroom, and again, this is a handout that's electronic on there for you. Start off with our agenda there. And then I take you through some pictures of the splash pages and signing up. And the registration video. It's all in one spot just for you. Some uses of Google in the classroom. Is anybody using it right now? And what do you use it for?
Google Apps.
Okay. And Docs,
As a whole.
Drive, everything? Cool. Everything?
Yeah.
Everything? Is there some special tool that you think is a personal favorite of yours? You think that, oh, that's really cool. I've never seen anything like it.
Well, I really like the forums just for getting that feedback and that instant feedback for the kids.
Mhm.
So I always put the display up so they can see what everybody else is saying.
And so what she's mentioned is Google Forms, and that's one of the things that I was going to talk about. So students can, again, being a math teacher, I have them do math questions. So like I said, I teach a flipped video class, and they'll watch a video at night, 10, 20-minute video. And at the end, I want data on what do they understand. They're coming into class the next day. Do they get last night's homework? Do they just watch it and take notes? And so they have to take a short quiz. And now there's a way, using some special scripts, to actually get images in. So Google has changed their scripts overall so that you can get a header image. But you can actually get images into each question, and you can actually even get images into each answer. And there's a walkthrough here on how to do that. And so I can put in a math problem and show them something. They can go through and take this, and then here's what you can get for a data sheet. So on this one, I created all of this data. My students for my engineering class built boats. And so it was a huge thing. They all got graded. Did it float? That was key, and this is their 4-person boats they actually got into. And so how long did it float for? I made comments for each individual student on how well they were working on each group. And then each student has that's what's blacked out here, is each student's email address and their parents' email address. And then what you can do is through Google Docs, and so some of these more advanced scripts, which we'll look at here in a second, I actually wrote a rubric for each student and then created kind of like a mail merge like you would in Word. So it's running through and saying, all right, what was their score? Did it sync? And fills in all these individual things. And it will send out a personalized letter to each parent and each student with and this was accumulated in a month-long project. And so it was worth it for me to go through and set all this up. And having 130 students, it would have taken forever to write all this out and add up all their scores and things like that. So that was using Google Docs. And so raise your hand if you have a Google account on your own. Wonderful. All right. So if you have a Google account, hopefully you're familiar with at least Gmail and the calendar. But we're going to take a look at what Google Drive can look like. So the other thing that's nice about Google Drive and using Google Apps for Education is the one problem that I've always had with Google is I think I have 6 different Google accounts that I use for different things. I have my personal one, I have a school one, I have my student council one. And with Drive, you can only in one drive at a time. They won't let you in Mail. You can switch in between them really easily. But in Drive, Google Apps for Education is separate. So when you buy your own at folsommiddlejaguars.com, I can be in that one and my personal drive at the same time. And it is so amazing to be able to switch them back and forth between those two. So this is my math one that I have set up for a little while. And like I said, this is the one that I use. So my students take a little quiz. There's there, chapter 2. And they go through and they're going through and filling out all these questions. If they have an email address, they can put in their email address and it'll auto-grade it and send a response back to them. I put in what the answers are before using a script called Flubaroo. And that's going to be the first one we'll look at. So Google Drive, and this is where we get to more of the advanced thing. Google Drive allows you to have collaborative workspace. Like Microsoft 360 SkyDrive is similar. It has a lot of the same features. I'm not as familiar with it. I don't use it. I use Google Drive. Other people talk very highly of Google 360. I haven't really ever seen a comparison. They do a lot of the same things. So there is a form that looks like this. So they watch their video at night, and you could do this with whatever in class. And you can make a pretty little form. Mine are very simple because I have to make them every single day for the students. But it has their name, has their email address, and then they have to go through and they have a couple questions out of the book. They know what question 1, I don't even need to put the page because it's very clear which page they're on. And they fill in those, and as they fill those in, the answers get put into a spreadsheet that looks like this. So this is nice for me as a teacher because I can look through them, and even without any automated grading or anything like that, I can go through and go like, all right, well, this person's obviously totally wrong, and this person's totally wrong. They need some extra help. And so I can go through and look just real quickly before class. Sometimes I'll usually check it. They do them after school, so sometimes I'll check before I go to bed, and then again in the morning. And you can see, wow, kids are doing homework at, for middle school, that's kind of late, almost 10 o'clock at night. And they're getting up in the morning and doing it at 7 in the morning. So you can see when they're doing their homework. Sometimes, that one was at midnight? Wow. We need to get a little more sleep. And so you can see when they're doing their homework. And I can go through and go, all right, tomorrow I need to sit down with Ruby and Cole and Ethan and give them some extra help on that first one. Or I can sit down, and there have been problems in math where like 90% of the kids didn't get it. I guess I did not get that concept across very well. And so I can go through and look at that. This is a spreadsheet similar to Excel. You can do formulas in it. You can make graphs. Very similar to Excel, except it has some special features. And it's basically when we're talking about scripts, and you'll see a lot of mentions of scripts in my handout. Think of it as an additional little add-on piece of software or an application that you might download. They're free. Well, most of them they're free. All the ones that I use are free. The most common one, and there's several presentations on it, even in this workshop today, and that could give you a more step-by-step, is a script called Flubaroo. So if you want to add in, when you're in your spreadsheet, you can download this script called Flubaroo, and it's really as easy. I'm going to show you. It says, great, in step 1. So all your students are sending in all their responses, whether it could be some survey you're doing in class. This is quick enough that you can do it in class. And with our wonderful internet, it'll load up nice and quickly, just like at your school. So it's really as simple as this. Questions, how many points are they worth? You have little drop downs here that says, all right, the name identifies the student. And then it's going to ask for, all right, which one of these is your answer key? Which one has the correct answer? So if you have a really smart student, you could just select theirs. Or you can go through and make your own. So right after I make them, I go through and select the answer key. And it's going to say the first person that took it was this name Key. I bet that's the right one. And it'll go through and grade the whole assignment. It'll tell you, highlight in red, people that got especially low scores. It will give the option to email out grades to everybody. So anybody that's taken the test that's provided an email address, it will send them a pretty score that's green if they got it right and red if they got it wrong. And that's all built into the script. As far as Google Apps for Education, the question has been, well, I have a lot of students, or I want to do this for my whole school or my whole department. Entire universities use Google Apps for Education for free, so I've never heard of a limit. I have almost 1,000 students on mine now that have, and that's the other nice thing is I have students that were in 8th grade that have moved on to high school now, and they're like, well, can we still use it? I'm like, sure, I'll leave it up there for you. And they have their work up there, and they can continue to use it because it is also a nice formal email address for them. So I'll take down some of the blocks for them, and so that when they're going to apply for a job, they don't have to use their soccer star email address. They can have this nice formal one that looks like it's a school email address and use that. So this script just went through and graded everything. It will show us whether they emailed the grade. It will show what percentage they got, how many points they had. It will tell us that they submitted more than once, and goes through and goes, okay, well, it seems like this one right here, compared to the 80%, this one was 38%. So that's definitely a topic that I'm going to want to cover again the next day. And so this is just one of the many scripts that we're going to be talking about. and the question on how to get these scripts. If you click on Tools when you're in your Google Drives, there's something called the Scripts Gallery, and it's just a matter of going through, and if you just search for Flubaroo, there's lots of different ones on here. The only thing with Flubaroo is you want to make sure you get the English version. So there's a Spanish version too, and I don't speak Spanish, so it was difficult to install it. So you would just search for Flubaroo and go through and add that into your script. So there's lots of options, and like I said, I'm leaving all this up here. I'm just showing you a quick overview of all the things that are possible, and hopefully you'll go back and explore more on your own. So some other tools that come with Google Apps for Education. So when your students sign up for it, you pay the $12, you upload your CSV file, 2 days later you're ready to go, and this is all the tools that are available for your students. If you don't want them to have email, shut it off. It's a little on-off switch, just shut it off. If you don't want only your older students to have it, you can turn it on just for them. You can even go down and when students mess around on it, just shut it off just for that individual student. That usually, oh, I can't get into my email. Oh, well, were we using it appropriately yesterday? And so you can talk with them and have that discussion about appropriate use. So Gmail, there's Google Calendar. I use that on my site. So there's our school site. I use Google Calendar on my site because it syncs in and it's all web-based and really nice for parents so they can see what's going on in class. You can embed the calendar within whatever site. If you don't have a personal classroom site, your school doesn't provide something, you can use Google Sites to set it up. And so I have a calendar here with my engineering classes and my math classes as far as what's going on each day. You can use Google Sites, so like I said, to create a site. I've had the students create sites before. I read an article that now seems outdated about that students were creating websites as personal resumes and then directing potential employers. This was for high school students applying for a job at Carl's Jr. I don't think Carl's Jr. is checking out students' individual websites that they've created, but possibly when they get into college, that if they're applying for a job, certainly in the information technology field, that they might have an online portfolio of here's an example of some of my electronic work that I've done. So I had my students create sites, worked out really well. They did a great job in class. They had to present them. They had to upload work to them. They were able to create different header banners and things like that. Google Sites is pretty wonderful. I'm working on my wedding website with my fiance and just using Google Sites because it is so multifunctional. You can really have any sites on there, and it's totally free. I did take down the protective wall that we had for a week so the students could show their parents, and the parents really got some positive feedback from that. They enjoyed seeing what their students do in class. I also send out a class newsletter through my Gmail account that just tells all the parents, here's what's going on in class. I have a little slideshow that I throw in there, and like I said, the parents enjoy that. Google Maps is wonderful. If you're at all teaching anything with geography or history, you can use Google Maps. There are some historical maps now in Google, so you can scroll back and see oh, here's a map of the Roman roads and things like that that people have made. And a lot of the maps are public, and so you can go and you're not always creating your own content. I remember in credential school, that was the big thing. It's just go out and steal and find whatever else you can. So you're going through and just finding what other teachers have. Google Drive, you're using the cloud features. It's very similar to Word. I didn't have to train my students at all. If you're not familiar with Google Drive, there's no training necessary. The Google Slides versus PowerPoint, the students oh, font size is in this menu. And they make the fonts big and crazy colors and add in the transitions, which is their most important part of it. Google Forms is, like I said, I would say that's my favorite part of it too. I've used it for evaluation before. I've gotten our principal onto using it for a classroom. Just walk in, he can fill out a form that I created for him, and he goes in and has a little drop down with all the teachers' names and what day it is, and he can just make, oh, looks like the students were on task, nice job, and then it sends a little response to the teacher on what the principal observed when he came in. We still do our formal observations on paper because our district is old and antiquated. And Google Voice, like I said, I mentioned that in the beginning. It's a free phone number. One of the cool things that we started this year was, like any middle school, we have a big problem with bullying, or at least a perceived big problem with bullying. And so we set up an email address where the students could email in. Well, most middle school students don't have an email address unless I've provided them one. And so they weren't getting a lot of responses, and there was still just a lot of people going up to the principal and telling him, and then the principal would have to call them out of class with the bright green pass, and everybody knew that you were going to tattle because the good kids going to the vice principal's office. And so we said, well, get all the kids text, so there's got to be a way to do this. And sure enough, through Google Voice, you can text into that number. So not only can you create a free phone number that students can call and leave a voicemail on and then download it as an MP3. That's how I was using it. We just set up another phone number, 982-BULLY, and it's a local number for the students to text in, and they can just be on their phone and text. It goes right to the vice principal's account that I made for him, and he can either text back to them from that number, so he's not giving out his personal number. Well, when is this happening? You said there's something going on. I need more details. This wasn't clear enough. And respond to the student that way. And so that way there's not the bright green pass identifying the student. He's able to follow up on it. And so the bully reporting line. And if you're interested in that, if you just search bullying reporting through Google Voice, I found a wonderful school. I'll show you. It was that good. In Massachusetts, I believe, that had some really good information online. That was just kind of the administrative policies behind it, like this is not an emergency number, do not text it if you're getting beaten up right now, we're not checking this always. And so it just had some good background information that our district appreciated to release some liability on there. When you're in your Google Drive, you can create, and here's all your different options here, Word document, presentation, spreadsheet, even a drawing that you're doing something on an advanced form of Paint. But when you're creating one of these Google Forms, and like I said, everything I do, I'm in charge of the technology at our school. I did not want to walk around and look at every single computer and figure out what model number it was. So I just created a Google form for my staff and sent them out a link. Most of them don't have Google accounts, and so they're just going to a link. You could also embed it on a web page. So my students, when they're going to this is just a web page that they're going to that I provide them links for. And so they can go through and look at that. But if you were to go through one, it's always being updated. It's as simple as what's your name? And you have different options here. You can do a multiple choice, a checkbox, a scale. You can put in the date. You can make it a required question. You can add more items. You can have multiple pages. You can have a multiple choice, like if you select period 2, it goes to one page. If you select period 3, it goes to another page. And so it can really be customized for each user experience. You can have it published and show the responses. So certainly things for students. I've even used it for word clouds before, and then I found a better way to do it. But word clouds where you just, when you think of green technology, what do you think of? And they all just went on there and gave a word. When you think of recycling, and then I just took all those answers and put it into Wordle and made a little word cloud, and we were able to see what responses came up. Now I use Poll Everywhere, because the students can take out their cell phones, and if they get a chance to take out their cell phones in class, you got automatic buy-in. So this is it, and then you can be accepting responses, and when you go see the live form, you can customize the background and things like that, but you really just provided a link.
Setting the share button?
Yeah, for the link. It's also posted at the bottom. Yeah, so you can do the send form, and there's the link to share right there. You can send it via email to people, and they can actually fill it out within the email. Or the way I usually do it is embed the form. So if you have a website that you can embed something in, then you can embed it right in there, and so people see the whole thing. So I'll do that with my students or my teachers or something like that. And you can customize how big it is and stuff like that. So I surveyed my students on what they wanted to do. For my engineering class, I have 7 different units, and I've taught all 7 now, and I really don't care which one they do. And so I kind of each ask the beginning of each trimester, what are you guys interested in? I present all 7 options, and they go through and look at all of them. And then there is a way when this comes up to have it's called a summary of responses. And it's a simple thing. They'll give you some bar graphs or some pie graphs or whatever is appropriate for the responses. If it's a written out response, they'll just have a listing of all the written out responses. It doesn't have all the features. So it's voice.google.com, and if you're familiar with Gmail, I find that set up some very similar to Gmail. You kind of have your inbox, you have your voicemails over here, your history, you have contacts, and then right down here you can get a voice number. And so this is that summary that I was talking about.
Finally came up.
Yes. So you can see some different choices for how many people rank them. Shows the number of daily responses. So it's decent, and it might be useful for some things. So when you get a voice number, it's going to ask you, what kind of number do you want? You got it up already?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah. So you can get a voice number. It's cool because if it's like, oh, do you want something specific? You can give an area code, you can give a zip code, and it will actually customize a number that's would be a local number for you. If you want something in there, like I really want the word bully in there, and I was willing to kind of accept something. So you can put the word bully in, and it'll tell you, well, here's your two choices that are 9, 8, whatever, and it'll go through and create the bully number.
Once you install that, will that be one of the apps on your Chrome home screen, like Google Drive, Google Voice, Google Gmail?
It never makes it with enough seniority to get up to the very top bar here, but under the more, and I think even under the even more, it is there. I just go to voice.google and it just takes me straight there. And like I said, once the vice principal took it over, he looks at it every day. So I think I set up for him like a little bookmark. I'm sure that's all of you at teachers going around like, can you set up a bookmark for me? Is it charged for the phone number? No, it's free. Yeah. This little credit thing, I believe you can buy credits to make international or long distance. I've never used that feature on it. You can text on it. I think you get 50 a day, or there's like a credit for 50, and then they have some kind of system like it charges you one to go in, and then it's free to have one coming into you, and you get a credit back every day, but it's somewhere like around 50 a day. So if a student really wanted to, they could kind of use it.
It also do voice transcriptions, though. If somebody leaves a voice,
it does. Yeah, it does the transcriptions. And so one teacher that I saw presenting on this said that they were even using it, doing it for English language learners, is that they could be on their phone and really work on their enunciation, thing like that. Because if Google, it's a pretty good voice transcription, and so if you're pretty clear in your enunciations, it will pick it up. So some more tools in the classroom. Joe Wood, the presenter, is Mr. Google, and so he has a lot of tools, and he set up this site and then allowed me to put my name on it as well. He did all the work. I just share. But there's a lot of cool ideas that he's been on here. He has been presenting on Google Apps for Education for a long time. The Natomas Charter uses it. And so he has a lot of things. So after you would get signed up, there's this website, which is sites.google. And again, you could access this through my site, this Google Apps for Education. And there's different ways to use Gmail and sites and maps. The voice, this is where I first came across voice. YouTube, Chrome extensions, and everything that you would want to do. And this is all designed for Google Apps in the classroom. And so there's lots of cool ideas on here of just how you can use, I think he's really good with maps and Earth. And so different teachers around the Sacramento area have contributed to this. When we find something cool, we'll upload it and share it with everybody. And so it's all the Google Apps for Education in the Sacramento area. We kind of have our own little site here that we share out. It now allows you to download things. So if you have students at home creating it, and I think what's been really nice for me is other teachers are coming to me and going like, oh, my kid has this Google presentation, like how do I play it? Because they learned about it in my class and now they're using it for their history presentation and things like that. For the Google Drive, if you have never used Google Drive before, the coolest thing is the ability to peer edit and work on a document together. So you can pull up a Word document or a PowerPoint or a spreadsheet and have one student, 5 students, the whole class working on the same document at the same time. And so when you're making a presentation on the 50 states, you can have each student be assigned to a slide, and they each can be working on their slide, and at the end of the period, they're all done. There's no need to combine all the slides together or email them or share them around. Everybody has access, everybody can see it. There's that little bit of fun of one student typing and then the other student erasing their typing, which just let it go on. Just let it happen for like 5 minutes and be like, all right, we all saw that we can do that now. Okay, let's move on because we need to get graded on some things here. But it is really fun for the students to do. The one part about Google Apps for Education that I have not found a way to limit, and they say that they're working on a solution, is over in the side, so when you're in it, over here there's a comment section. I'm on view only. But there, on the right side, there's a actual little chat window. And so students can be chatting on there. The idea being that, oh, I like what you did here in period 2, in paragraph 2. And instead of students could go through and peer edit, there's no way to turn that off.
No.
It's just that particular little chat window. You can turn off chats in other places. You can turn off Gmail. But if you're using Google Drive, that's part of Google Drive, is that little chat window. And so what I do is I just kind of log in and the students share it with me first, because that's how they turn their work in too. There's no need to them to email anything to you. They just share it with you, and then it shows up in my Google Drive, which can get a little cumbersome. I'll show you what it can look like. That's at some point you just have to get good at organizing. In my other Google Drive, they do share a lot of work with me, and so what I do is as soon as I'm done grading it, delete. I just get rid of it so it's not cluttering up my drive, or put it in a folder or something like that. But you will get.
Still have it.
They still have it, yeah. And so I have 130 students in my engineering class that I'm doing this with, and when you ask them for a PowerPoint presentation, you get 130 ones, and you can go through and you can look at all of them, but a couple assignments in, and you're having to scroll a long ways. The search feature does work, and so that's always nice when my students are coming up to present, is I can just look up like, all right, where's Joey? And all of Joey's stuff will come up. First thing you're gonna do is decide if you want to use this for the students and how you want to use it. Because every one of these workshops today, there's some teacher, presenter, that's saying, this is how I do it. And other teachers are gonna do it differently in your class. So you gotta think about, number one, do I want my students to have email addresses? Do they all need to get that? If they do, then you would be going through that first video that's signing up, paying the $12. If you don't, and you have a Gmail account, you can do a lot of this stuff on your own. You can create the forms. You can create all that. If you have a website, you can do all that. The students don't need Gmail accounts. They don't even need email addresses to have a form up there. I do peer evaluations on that. So the students just go on and fill out a form online, and I get all the data and I can keep everything. If you do want them to have email addresses, then you pay the $12 and you start going through that. And I would say that all of these are pretty good. Let's see here, this. Instructions on how to do this. So here's one in particular that I know is pretty decent. But they have, so you're in your Google Forms, they tell you what to click on. There's little pictures. Click on the orange button and then drop down. And this is actually a more advanced one that it will work, I promise. That does have a lot of step-by-step. And certainly my email address is on here. I'd be happy. I really want.
I hear a lot of middle school. I'm a third grade teacher.
Okay.
So using some of the stuff that you guys are talking about in third grade class.
There is I know there is a presentation on Google Drive for the primary classroom today. That might be good to hear from an elementary school teacher, yeah, on how they use it. People have done the Google Forms. I know elementary school teachers do spelling tests with it, because you can have it in there, and if it's not spelled correctly, it says, oh, that's not spelled correctly, and kicks it back to them as wrong. And so they can use a Google form for their spelling tests. I don't know if it would come up with spell correct, like before they typed it in. If you read, it does? All right, maybe not. Yeah.
Yeah, but they keep trying.
Yeah.
No, my kids know to
Right click.
Oh. And then you're just done, unless you do it multiple choice.
Yeah.
All right. So there's a lot of examples on here. And so the Google tools in the classroom. If you aren't able to and want some other information on there, you're certainly welcome to explore the rest of this site on your own time. The flipped teaching, I go a lot more into that. So that's the concept of how I like to explain it is more time in front of your students. You webcast yourself or provide some kind of online presence, and so the students are getting more of you at home, where you're able to control the instruction to them. So that's a session I'm presenting next time. But this website tools, this is one of my original presentations, was just lots and lots and lots of websites on how to use Google Tools, CapCUE locally. There's some home designer websites. There's Prezi and Poll Everywhere and some of the things that I've mentioned. I think everything that came up today is somewhere on the software there. For math teachers, this is really cool. This CUDA software I saw a presentation on that allows you to make your own websites and worksheets, and it's free. Like the 30-day trial is free, but there's hundreds, if not thousands, of problems that you can make your own worksheets, crank them all out for the whole year before your 30-day trial, or put in a new email address. And that is true with this. Anytime you need multiple email addresses, just make a new email address for yourself, and you can go in and register for another 30-day trial. I am MrJohnstone.com, or sorry, Mr. Johnstone FMS. Yeah. Mr. Johnstone FMS on Twitter, and all my YouTube videos are that too.